She thought they were mannequins at first. Two pale forms lying in the snow, perfectly still, half hidden behind a guardrail on German Church Road. It was January 22nd, 1957, a bitterly cold Tuesday afternoon in Willow Springs, Illinois. The construction worker, Leonard Prescott, nearly drove past. Something made him stop. He walked closer. The snow crunched beneath his boots. And then he saw what would haunt him for the rest of his life. Not mannequins, but two teenage girls, naked and frozen, their bodies arranged in a way that seemed almost deliberate. One lay face down, the other face up, positioned on top of her sister. 25 days earlier, these same girls had been giggling in line for popcorn at a Chicago movie theater, excitedly watching their idol Elvis Presley on the big screen for the 11th time. Now they were here, in a snow-filled ditch in the middle of nowhere. What happened in those 25 days would become one of the most controversial investigations in Chicago history. Over 300,000 people would be questioned. Multiple suspects would confess, then recant. Forensic experts would contradict each other. Witnesses would report seeing the girls alive, days, even weeks, after they supposedly died. And at the center of it all, two devoted sisters who loved Elvis, trusted the wrong person, and paid the ultimate price. This is the story of Barbara and Patricia Grimes, and after nearly 70 years, their killer has never been found. Barbara Grimes was 15 years old, a sophomore at Thomas Kelly High School with perfect attendance and dreams of becoming a secretary. Her sister, Patricia, just 12, was still in 8th grade at St. Maurice's Catholic School. They were inseparable. At home on South Dahmen Avenue in Chicago's McKinley Park neighborhood, the two girls shared everything: a bedroom, secrets, and an absolute devotion to Elvis Presley. By December 1956, Elvis was the biggest star in America. His first film, Love Me Tender, had just been released, and the Grimes sisters couldn't get enough of it. This would be their 11th viewing. 11 times they'd scraped together bus fare and ticket money to watch the king of rock and roll on the big screen. On the evening of Friday, December 28, 1956, Barbara and Patricia told their mother Loretta they were heading to the Brighton Theater, just a mile and a half from home. It was bitterly cold that night, temperatures hovering around 15 degrees. The girls left at 7:30 p.m. with $2.50 between them. Barbara had been told to keep 50 cents aside in case they stayed for the double feature. "Be home by midnight," their mother said. It was the last time she'd see them alive. At the Brighton Theater, the girls did exactly what they always did. They bought their tickets, found good seats, and lost themselves in the movie. During intermission between the double feature, around 9:30 p.m., Dorothy Weinert, a school friend of Patricia's, saw both sisters waiting in the concession line for popcorn. They seemed happy, normal. Nobody was with them. Dorothy and her sister left early, opting not to stay for the second feature. The Grimes girls stayed. The movie ended around 11 p.m. Witnesses later reported seeing Barbara and Patricia leaving the theater, walking along Archer Avenue. A young man named Roger Menard said he saw them talking briefly to someone in a black Mercury, then later near a green Buick, but that they didn't get in either vehicle and kept walking. Then they vanished. Midnight came and went. Their older siblings, Joey and Teresa, waited at the bus stop near their house, watching 3 buses come and go with no sign of the girls. By 2:15 a.m., a frantic Loretta Grimes called the Chicago Police Department to report her daughters missing. The police's initial response was dismissive. "They're runaways," officers told the family. "Probably went to Nashville to see Elvis in person." But Loretta knew better. Her daughters were good girls, straight-A students. They wouldn't run away. They wouldn't worry their family like this. By early January, the police finally took the case seriously. What followed was one of the largest missing persons investigations in Chicago history. Over 300,000 people were questioned. Hundreds of volunteers, including off-duty firefighters and sheriff's deputies, combed through Chicago's parks, alleys, and waterways. More than 15,000 flyers were distributed throughout the city. The local church offered a $1,000 reward. Even Elvis Presley himself made a televised plea on January 19th, begging the girls to come home. But the tips that flooded in only complicated things. Witnesses reported seeing the sisters everywhere: at a Madison Street diner with two men on December 30th, boarding a bus on Dahmen Avenue on January 1st, at a Kresge department store listening to records on January 3rd, at hotels, with teenage boys, with men who looked like Elvis. Were these legitimate sightings, or mass hysteria in a city desperate for answers? On January 22, 1957, Leonard Prescott's discovery ended all hope. The bodies were found on the north side of German Church Road in Willow Springs, about 250 feet from County Line Road, a desolate, rural area roughly 15 miles from the Brighton Theater. Both girls were completely nude. There were no clothes at the scene, no personal belongings, nothing. The crime scene was immediately contaminated. Police officers walked through the area before forensic teams could properly document evidence. But what they did find was deeply disturbing. Barbara's face was bruised and disfigured. Patricia had puncture wounds on her chest, possibly from an ice pick. Both bodies appeared to have been washed clean. The official autopsy concluded that the girls had died of secondary shock due to exposure to freezing temperatures within hours of leaving the theater on December 28th. But Harry Gloss, the chief investigator for the Cook County Coroner's Office, wasn't buying it. Gloss insisted the girls had been alive for days, possibly weeks, after December 28th. He pointed to a thin layer of ice on the bodies that could only have formed if they'd been alive until at least January 7th, when specific weather conditions occurred. He noted curdled milk in Barbara's stomach, something she hadn't consumed at home. He stated both girls showed evidence of sexual assault. The official coroner, Walter McCarran, disagreed. He accused Gloss of being publicity mad and fired him on February 15, 1957. The conflict between these two men would haunt the investigation for decades. If the girls died hours after leaving the theater, they were abducted almost immediately, meaning the killer was someone they encountered that night near Brighton Park. But if they died in January, as Gloss believed, then all those witness sightings were real. They'd been held captive for weeks. The truth? Nobody knew. And with forensic experts contradicting each other, the investigation was already falling apart. Within days of finding the bodies, police arrested their prime suspect, Edward Lee "Benny" Bedwell, a 21-year-old drifter from Tennessee who worked as a dishwasher on Chicago's Skid Row. Bedwell was tall, semi-literate, and bore a striking resemblance to Elvis Presley, just like the man witnesses had described. After 3 days of intense interrogation, Bedwell signed a 14-page confession. He claimed he and an accomplice named Frank met the girls at a Madison Street tavern on January 7th. They spent a week together, moving between hotels. On January 13th, when the girls resisted their advances, Bedwell said they knocked them unconscious and dumped them in the ditch. "If I hadn't been drinking, I wouldn't have done what I'd done," Bedwell told the Chicago Daily Tribune. Loretta Grimes immediately rejected the confession. "It's a lie," she said. "My girls wouldn't be on West Madison Street. They didn't even know where it was." And she was right. The confession quickly fell apart. The autopsy showed no alcohol in the girls' systems, no hot dogs, which Bedwell claimed to have fed them, and, crucially, Bedwell's factory time card proved he was working the night of December 28th when the girls disappeared. On February 6th, someone posted his $20,000 bail, and Bedwell was released. He died in 1972, never charged. But the case wasn't over. In May 1957, Loretta received a chilling phone call. A man's voice, calm and mocking. "I kidnapped them, stripped them, and killed them. I know something about one of your daughters that no one else knows, not even the police." The youngest girl's toes were crossed over each other. It was true. Patricia did have crossed toes. This detail had never been released to the public. The caller laughed and hung up. Years later, investigators would focus on Charles Leroy Melquist, convicted in 1959 of murdering 15-year-old Bonnie Lee Scott. Her nude, decapitated body was found just miles from where the Grimes sisters were discovered. When Scott's body was found, Loretta received another call from the same voice. "I got away with one, and I'll get away with this one too." Melquist died in prison, but the truth died with him. Barbara and Patricia Grimes rest side by side at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Alsip, Illinois. Their mother, Loretta, passed away in 1989 at age 83, never knowing who killed her daughters. The case remains unsolved. Their killer was never found, and Chicago has never forgotten the two sisters who went to see Elvis and never came home.